Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. It's Transformational Tuesday, you guys, and we're talking about the fear of expansion this morning. Okay. The fear of expansion. Again, this is all about embrace. This week is we're talking about embrace, the E and rise, you guys. Listen, the fear of expansion. Have you ever pulled back right when things were starting to open for you? Have you ever pulled back right when things were starting to show up, right when life was starting to do what it do, right? Not because you wasn't ready, but because being seen felt overwhelming. It felt like it was too much. Listen, what area of your life is asking for more of you, right? But fear keeps whispering to you, play safe. Play safe. Listen, you're not alone. Let's name that today and let's release it. Okay. Let's name it today and let's release it because the core message of today is really about this. This session isn't about the fear of avoidance, right? It's about the fear of activation. All right. It's about the fear of activation. When you're stepping into something bigger, right? New opportunities, right? Higher visibility, leadership, your nervous system, again, it may interrupt or it may interpret, right, it as dangerous or danger. Not because it is, but because what? It's different. It's something different. And this is the final resistance, right? This is the final resistance, the fear that shows up after you've healed the old, right? And you're standing at the edge of the new. All right. So here's some real life examples of this, right? The person who keeps getting offered speaking gigs, right, but forgets to follow up, all right? The man who's ready to leave a draining job, but clings to it because of the unknown, right? Because that unknown really just feels too risky, all right? And to my clients who finally feel emotionally ready to date again, but guess what? But they convince themselves that they still need to work on themselves, right? Before they actually step out there, right? These individuals don't lack the readiness, all right? They lack the emotional safety to expand. All right. They lack the emotional safety to expand. And we're going to talk about this today, right? Because fear at the edge of a breakthrough doesn't mean go back, you guys. It means pay attention, right? This is your edge. Okay. It means pay attention. This is your edge. All right. Listen, you're no longer running from pain. You're just resisting the possibilities. Again, if you don't understand this whole life lesson, it's about changing the narrative. Why? Because you've done so much work. All right. You've done so much work. And a lot of us are not so much, and I say it all the time. A lot of us are not healing, right, from these past wounds. A lot of our life right now is about what we're expanding, right? We call it breaking generational curses, but I think it's more than that, right? It's not even so much that we're breaking generational curses, because I do think that where your attention goes, your energy flows. So when you thinking about breaking generational curses, literally you end up doing the very thing or in the very curse that you called yourself trying to break, right? So what you're doing is you're really creating a new roadmap, right? You're creating new patterns, new beliefs, right? And at the cusp of the old way that your family, right, your friends, the culture that you grew up in used to live, like you're on the edge of that, right? And you don't really know like what the newness looked like. And so the only thing you have is the old. And so it's like, oh, my mom wasn't here, my dad wasn't here. But really it sometimes has nothing to do with that. It's because you have experienced, you're the first generation graduate, right? You're the first individuals to really stabilize in the family, right? You're probably the first person to be present with your kids, right? You're probably the first person to do something called gentle parenting, right? So you're probably the first of many, right, to do some things. And that expansion, right, that difference is creating some some resistance in your nervous system, right? And so it's a struggle. And the thing that makes sense for you to say is, it's my trauma, right? It's because my mom wasn't there. It's because, I still need to heal. And so we feel like we need to fix something, and it's truly not. It's this thing. It's not a fear of failure. It's not a fear of success. It's really a fear of what? Expansion. It's a fear of expansion. So if you see the title for today, it's listen, when more feels like too much, right? When more feels like too much. Listen, it's not fear, it's not failure, right? It's the fear of expansion. You guys, good morning, good morning, good morning. Listen, you no longer have to run from pain, right? You're now resisting the possibility. And this is new territory, right? It requires new levels of what? Self-trust. It requires new levels of self-trust. And your trigger isn't a sign of weakness, you guys. It's a sign that you're growing past your old threshold. Let's talk about it this morning. Let's talk about it this morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Why am I having this session? Because too often we confuse the discomfort of expansion with the lack of readiness. All right. But what if the resistance you're feeling isn't about failure? It's all about growth. It's about expansion. Listen, this session here is to show you how fear disguises itself as hesitation, so you can stop shrinking and really start what? Rising, right? So you can start rising. All right. Listen, this session is designed, this is our disclaimer. This session is designed to really help you recognize your emotional flashbacks. These are the triggers, right, that arise when you're stepping into greatness, right? Into greater alignment. But insight without action keeps you in what? In a loop. If you're serious about living boldly, right, you must move through the discomfort with structure and what? And support, right? So that's why I created Project Life, okay? Where we turn theory into practice. And that is what we're here for, right? To create the structure and support that you need as you start to what? Expand your life. Have you ever heard of this, right? This fear of expansion. I know that that's a prayer that people do. God, expand my territory, right? I want this, but nobody really told you that that is scary, right? That your nervous system is not prepared for that expansion, right? When you have been told to play small, right? When you have been told stories about people who play big, how their family has betrayed them, how society has done them, right? Silently, these stories have in some way weaponized or I don't say weaponized, but have made bigness, right, seem to be scary. And so we want to unpack that today. We're talking about triggers. So good morning, good morning. It's Transformational Tuesday. It's Transformational Tuesday. So let's take our deep breath on this morning, you guys. Gonna breathe in expansion, right? And then we're going to breathe out. All right. Breathe in expansion. And just get comfortable and safe with that. All right. As our lungs expand, right? Just letting our body know it's okay to expand. All right. Breathe out any resistance. All right. To that. All right. Remember, this is our time, right? We've done what we're supposed to do this morning. Right. Now we're coming together as as a community. All right. As a community. Okay. All right. So tell me how you doing this morning. Drop a word in the chat as we go to scan our bodies, right? How are you feeling on this morning? All right. I'm feeling good. I am feeling good on this morning. Again, I told you guys yesterday I was looking at my what is that? My cap and gown. So I'll kind of celebrate that on yesterday. Just doing small things, right? Because I really truly believe small things create big things, right? So yeah, just doing pretty good this morning. How are you doing this morning, right? So as we think about how we're doing, if you want to drop a word in the chat, do that, right? As we scan our bodies, because again, I just definitely want to make sure that we're bringing some compassion to our bodies this morning. Good morning, big brother, big little brother. Good morning. I love you. All right. So feeling our feet on the floor this morning. All right. Feeling our legs, right? our thighs, right? Our butts in the seat, right? Just bringing some love and compassion, right? As we talk about this thing of expansion, right? Again, we're praying for expansion, we're praying for more, but have we really trained our nervous system for it? Speaking about expansion, I'm gonna tell y'all a story about my brother. I hope that he is okay with this, but I think it really pairs good with this story of expansion. Again, up our backs, up our spine, right? Just focusing on our bones, right? Our spine has so many nerves in it, right? That's really communicating to our muscles and our tissues and everything. It's just like a beautiful vessel, right? Our ribs, right? Just kind of filling our ribs as it's keeping our organs safe, right? So our intestines, our lungs, our heart, right? Our stomach, right? Up our throat. Okay. Feeling the weight, right? Kind of release off our shoulders, down our arms, right? Our elbows, up our forearms, activating our hands on this morning. Okay. Up our necks. Okay, our ears, right? Feeling our ears, feeling the hearing the sound of the air by our ears, right? Our lips, our nose, our eyes, okay? Our top of our heads, right? And then our biggest organ, our skin, okay? All right. All right. And then if we're feeling a little tight this morning, let's kind of just push, right? Kind of push, right? Just like an arm's length, right? Just giving ourselves space. Okay. And if we're feeling too big this morning, right? Just kind of pulling ourselves back together, right? Pulling ourselves in, right? Okay. And letting ourselves know that we're safe. I love you. I love you, right? Letting ourselves know that we're safe and that we're loved on this morning. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Listen, good morning. Drop a word in the chat. Good morning. So I was going to tell a story about expansion, right? So my brother, we went fishing this weekend, had a great time. I'm going to share some pictures of some of the fish that my uncle caught that I actually took some pictures of. But I remember when my brother first decided to get a boat and level up the family. I said he did it for the culture of the family. And so he goes and he gets this boat. So he sees the boat and he's like, sis, you gonna ride down with me? And I'm like, sure, we're gonna ride down and get the boat. So we ride down to get this boat. Right. And when he gets there, I guess in his mind, like seeing the boat, I mean, and for me too, right? Seeing the boat on the screen and actually getting inside the boat, right? I think was two different experiences for him. So we get on the boat, he get on the boat, and the guy takes him up the river, right? And so I stay back because I'm like, listen, if this man don't bring you back, I ain't getting out there on the boat with you, so I'm scared because I'm a little scary, just for the people in the back row who don't know, I'm a little scary. So I stay in the car. And then I see them kind of come back because something happened with the boat. Well, my brother was kind of happy that something happened with the boat because it was very overwhelming, right? When he got on this boat, he didn't really realize how big the boat was. Okay. The boat sit like 8 people. Okay. So when we got back in the car, he kind of said to himself, like, yeah, that was kind of a big boat. You know what I mean? Now, that overwhelm in the beginning kind of made him a little resistant to getting a boat. But I think he sat with it and he was like, I can do this, right? And so he ended up purchasing a boat that was, in similar size. And now, guess what? I see him with that boat, honey. He backed the boat in, he, docked the boat, he put it in the water, right? But when he first started off with this boat, that, like I said, it's a nice size boat. Like, I don't know how many feet how big the boat is, but like it's a nice size boat. Like it literally could, it's a nice size boat. So, but I could see him getting comfortable. He's gotten so comfortable, like he can back the boat up and all of that. But when he first got on that boat, it was like overwhelming for him, right? So much so that when that boat shut down, he was like, yeah, we don't got to get that boat, sis. I'm okay. And I'm telling this story because I think that's what happens in life, right? I think it's a great story because when we ask for things, if this makes sense, when we ask for God to expand our life, when we ask for God to do a big thing for us and we experience that growth, right? We're triggered in some way, shape, or form. It's scary, and so it could be this feeling of overwhelm, right? That we have to learn to get comfortable with. And then when we learn to get comfortable with it, guess what? It shrinks. It gets small. We get bigger than the thing. And at this point, my brother has gotten bigger than his boat, right? It's just like this boat that he just whipping his and whip, into the water, whip into the marina, you know, and it's just so beautiful to see that growth. Okay. Listen, who is the session for today? This session is for you. If you keep pulling, if that made sense, if that example made sense, put a heart in the chat for me. All right, listen, who is the session for today? This session is for you if you keep pulling back when opportunities show up. All right. If you've been hiding behind preparation, waiting to feel ready, and if every time you begin, right, to take up space, guilt or fear kind of kicks in. All right. All right, that this session is for you if this is happening, because remember, we're talking about rise and we're on the E. Okay, so we already talked about recognizing, we talked about being inspired, we're talking about strengthening your confidence, and the E is about embracing. All right, embracing what? Who you are, embracing all of the stuff that comes with life, right? And more importantly, embracing this moment, the duality, the good, the bad, the ugly, right? Because that is the first part of what? Healing, right? I have to take ownership, right? Either I'm causing, allowing, or participating, right? In my shrinking and all of the stuff that's happening to me right now, right? To start this healing process, in some way I need to embrace, right, who I am and what has happened to me. All right. And so today we're talking about this trigger, right? This trigger of expansion, how expansion triggers us, because a lot of us, we're naming it a failure. We're naming it something that it really isn't. It's a part of growth, right? And we have deemed it that, like, oh, I must not be ready. Oh, something must be wrong with me. And it's no, it's nothing wrong with you. It is the body doing what the body was trained to do, which is to ring the alarm, right? Something is about to change, all right, in your atmosphere. Ring the alarm. Something is about to change in your peripheral. Ring the alarm. Something is about to change in your finance. Ring the alarm. Something is about to change, right? And so your nervous system is ringing the alarm, all right? And you feel that, and it feels nervous. And what we tend to do is hide. What we tend to do is shrink, because what? That's what we know. That's what's familiar, all right? All right, if that makes sense, put a one in the chat. All right, so our powerful quote today is, listen, sometimes the fear isn't failure, you guys. It's the feeling that life is finally calling your name. Okay. So sometimes the fear isn't failure. It's the feeling that life is finally calling your name. What do I mean by that? Because this is my quote. So sometimes the fear isn't failure. All right. Sometimes the fear isn't failure. It's the feeling that life is finally calling your name. Have you ever so the fear isn't failure. Sometimes the fear is that life is finally calling my name. I think that sometimes we can pray for something, we can want something, and then when you finally get it, it's that fear, right? Like, are you serious? Like, you really calling me? Like, is it really my turn? Like, am I ready for this? Is this the relationship? Is it the finances? Like, can I handle this? Like, you start to question everything, right? So sometimes it ain't even a fear of failure, right? It's the fear that, like, life is actually called me, like it's my turn. And now I'm gonna question everything that I actually prayed to God for. Okay. And that is what we're talking about today, to give what? You permission to stand in it, to know that that is a part of the process. Everything that you feeling, all the doubts that's coming up, all of the red flag, all of that concern, it comes with what? Your name being called. And it's okay. And we don't have to judge it as right, wrong, or indifferent. It's a part of the process, right? If you see Beyonce right before she get on stage, okay, she breathing and she shaking her hands. Why? Because she nervous. All right. If you see Anybody right before they perform, right? They may have a garbage bag. They just didn't want to throw it. Why? Because they nervous every time. It ain't just like that time. It's every time. Why? Because that is what the body is meant to do. Okay. This is what the body is meant to do. All right. Listen, I had a client once say every time I got close to launching, I would sabotage it. Not because I wasn't capable, but because a part of me still felt unworthy of being seen. All right. This wasn't procrastination. It was a trauma informed pattern trying to protect me from rejection, right? So it was truly a trauma informed response trying to protect her from rejection, right? She had to recognize that shrinking was a safety reflex, not her truth. And what you guys have to recognize is that shrinking is a safety reflex. It's not your truth. Even in relationships, and this is sometimes why we can't take it personal, even though it hurts, right? Even though it hurts when people shrink and they don't give you the time and they don't validate you, right? They're like turtles. They're ducking their heads in, right? Because that's a trauma response for them, right? So we can't take it personal how they choose to respond to to emotional to their emotional unsafety, right? Because they haven't learned, right, that it's safe. They haven't learned that you're safe, and they can't learn that you're safe if they still uh haven't processed or understood that it's safe. It's safe to have this conversation, it's safe to be in this position is safe, right? So what she had recognized is that shrinking was a safety response, right? It was a safety reflex. And again, I'm saying reflex because what is a reflex? It is a natural thing. All right. It's not a choice. All right. And I want you to understand that a lot of my brother started laughing. He is laughing. Right, he laughing about that boat. You laughing about the boat, right? That it's a he laughing late though, don't y'all think? Because I told the story early. He must be at work, and he said, "I'm gonna have to come back and I'm gonna have to laugh because he laughed late." So I know he been thinking while he's sitting on the line, and then he said, "I got to get back and I gotta laugh at her," you know. So I use the word reflex, right? And intentionally, because I want you to know that shrinking, hiding, right, all of those are reflexes. It's not conscious decisions like, oh, I'm going to do this consciously. No, right? It's a reflex. All right, it's naturally. So you remember when a doctor used to hit your leg and like your leg would just naturally pop up like that, right? It's a natural response. And so this is why I'm saying that we have to have some compassion, because a lot of our behaviors, one, is a reflex. All right. So we're just doing it. Okay. And then now the space between my reflex, I did it. And then now I give myself compassion for that reflex. And then I think, I get present, and then I forgive. I have compassion for the reflex because I understand why the reflex is there. And then it's like, okay, now what do I do? Okay, what do I do? Do I still hide? Do I support the hiding? Right? What do I do? Good morning. Good morning, Tiana. Right? What do I do? Because listen, expansion, this fear of expansion is real. All right, it's real. And the shrinking is real. The hiding is real. And again, if you come from a community like I came from, or if you come from a family like I come from, right? Or circumstances and conditions like a lot of my clients come from, where uh, even if we just think about the trajectory of, or the experiences that of the diaspora, again, just being Black, right? Just being melanated, just being a part of this BIPOC society, right? There was this idea that you can't show up, or the other side of that, like you got to be what, two times better, or you know um two times harder. So it's either you had to overperform, right? You have to overperform, or right, or you had to not perform, right? If you showed up too much within your people, right, then you were seen as showing out or being too much. And then for other cultures, right, you got to overperform to prove that your worth is valuable or that you're worth the position or whatever. And so you're getting like these messages, right, that creates this natural reflex. So I want you to pause for this mirror moment. All right. I want you to think about if that made sense before we pause. If that made sense, put a heart in the chat for me. All right. So for our mirror moment, I want you to say, what opportunity or platform, I want you to think, what opportunity or platform have you blocked away or backed away from, not because you wasn't ready, okay, but because expansion felt unfamiliar. All right, not because you wasn't ready, but because expansion. And again, when I say expansion, we could talk about change, right? We're talking about growth. It just felt too unfamiliar. It wasn't that you couldn't do the job. It probably wasn't because you couldn't be in a relationship. It probably wasn't because it just was so unfamiliar that you was like, it's too risky. It's too risky. All right. So what opportunity or platform have you backed away from? Because not because you wasn't ready, but because what? Expansion felt unfamiliar. Here's what I need you to know. Okay. Here's what I need you to know. And think about this. It might not be something that you'll always ask, but I want you to think about it. Listen, triggers aren't always loud. Okay. All right. I want you to think about this. Triggers aren't always loud, right? They're subtle. They're sometimes subtle, right? Many times we think that triggers are these big emotional outbursts, right? Because when we associate triggers, we see people who are triggered and they're like, oh, you're triggering me, right? But some of the most dangerous triggers, right, when we're talking about this law of expansion or this fear of expansion, right, guess what? These triggers look like avoiding emails, canceling plans, numbing out with busyness, all right? Silencing your voice in meetings, like having this conversation in your head, but not really speaking up. Silencing your voice in your family, wanting to say something, but not really saying it, right? These quiet moments of withdrawals are often fear dressed up as responsibility, right? Like, I'm just going to sit back and not say anything, right? These are all small triggers, all right? So sometimes being triggered is not loud, right? It's these things that we don't do, right? It's the inactivity that we're not taking. All right. All right. Number 2, unhealed triggers shape your identity, you guys. All right. Listen, when left unexamined, repeated emotional flashbacks can create what? Identity markers. All right. Listen, I'm not good at confrontation, right? Because guess what? You've trained yourself. Why? Because you haven't said anything over and over and over again. You haven't addressed the issue over and over and over again. Now you have identified yourself as what? Not being good at confrontation. Or I just don't like being in the spotlight. Okay, again, you have shaped your identity because you haven't spoke up, because you haven't said the thing, right? Over and over again, you've sat in the back row, you've not raised your hand, you've not used your voice, right? And so these unhealed triggers, right now, have identified as somebody who don't like to be in the spotlight, only um, because you've allowed this trigger, right, to shape your identity. All right. Um, I'm not meant to lead, right? These aren't truths. I'm telling you, these are defense mechanisms. All right. Again, I'm not meant to lead. Again, that's a trigger, again, that has shaped your identity. Maybe when you tried to lead before, you got punished or, something happened. So you use the trigger. So every time when you went to lead as an adult, right, this protective mechanism came up. Don't do that. And you did that enough. Now you start to identify as a person who don't lead, right? And I just want you to know that these aren't truths, right? You can be good at conflict management if you learned the skill, right? You can be good at being in the spotlight if you put yourself there and learn to really emotional regulate yourself, right? With the feelings that come up with everybody who's in the spotlight, okay? And you can lead if you build the skill, all right? All of those things are defense mechanisms, all right? All right. Number 3, your growth may trigger others, and that's okay. Okay. I'm telling you, it may trigger others, but that's okay. Listen, your expansion may make others feel uncomfortable. All right. All right. So your growth may make other people feel uncomfortable, not because you're doing something wrong, though. All right. But because they're still in the version of life you're outgrowing. All right. So they're still in the version of life that you're outgrowing. We talked about this yesterday, right? So a big part of you outgrowing this space, it doesn't mean that you're better than a person, or it's just that you're mature. You're mature past a certain part, and that's okay. Okay. But it's not okay for you to shrink. Okay. It's not okay for you to shrink. So sometimes your expansion, it definitely will make other people uncomfortable, but don't shrink to stay palatable or digestible, all right, for other people. All right. Listen, the trigger is not the problem, your response is. All right. Okay. The trigger is not the problem, your response is. Listen, the trigger is a doorway. You can walk through it and evolve, or you can slam it shut and stay the same. Listen, what matters is how conscious you are with your response. All right. All right. The trigger is just the doorway. See, you can walk through it, okay, or you can shut it. And I think that we feel like we don't have a choice when we're triggered, and you do. Okay. Like I said, the trigger is a lot of times just this knee-jerk reaction, but you can pause right after that trigger happens, and you can say, okay, what I want to do about it. Okay. So the trigger is never the problem, your response is. Okay. All right. Most triggers are rooted in old attachments. I want you to know most of our triggers are rooted in old attachments. Listen, especially for high performing individuals, fear of outshining, being rejected, or being too much often ties back to childhood attachments or inherited experiences, right? All right. So you really need to locate the story. Like, when did this start? When did this trigger start? You need to locate that story, because most triggers are rooted in old attachments. All right. And then a couple of more. Embodiment helps you to handle triggers better than intellect alone. Okay. Embodiment helps you to um, handle triggers better than intellect alone. What do I mean? Listen, you can't always think your way out of fear. Okay. You can't always think your way out of fear. Okay. You have to breathe, you have to move, and you have to ground yourself. Like, use your body to really reset your story. So embodiment means to feel it. All right. You have to, when people say face your fears, right? Face your fears, it truly is feel it, right? Feel the fear, right? Let the fear know that you're bigger than it. Let the fear know that you still safe and feeling it. So breathe, right? Take the breath. If you feel yourself holding your breath, just right, and breathe again and feel all of that, right? Even feel the emotion. Maybe you feel like you want to cry. Maybe you feel like, nervousness in your hand, right? But just breathe, right? Feel your feet on the floor. Come center, right? Come center. And if you need a person to help you, a safe person to do that, right? Because you're getting introduced back to your body, then get a safe partner or an accountability partner, or join like Project Life, so you can have that support, right? To anchor you, to get you safe back in your body. All right. Because growth, listen, the fear of expansion, a big part of that, you're going to have to feel safe in your body. All right. I, okay, I'm going to say this. I promote feeling safe in your body. Now, is there people who are performing? Absolutely. Okay. Safety in your body, though, is allowing you to have lower cortisol levels, is allowing you to have lower blood pressure, right? It's helping you to be healthy, right, in your pursuit of happiness. All right, because your body is not resisting, okay, the success. Your body is not resisting and counteracting so you're able to rest. Okay, you're able um to be healthy. All right, so a lot of people are successful, but they're not healthy in that success. So they may have high levels of anxiety, they may have, higher blood pressure levels, they may have uh you know levels of depression, they may have like all of these other ailments because they still don't feel safe in their body. All right. And so they may be showing up and they may have, and they may be successful, but they still don't feel safe in their bodies. And so their bodies now are, are not supportive of it, and so their bodies are compensating for the lack of safety. And eventually those people will start to do what? Meditate. They will start to breathe, they will start to work with people to what? Slow down, to breathe, to get present, right? Because and I say, why not start with that, right? Why not start to feel safe in the body? And guess what? That's a lifelong journey. All right, that's a lifelong journey. All right. And then the last thing is embracing growth isn't betrayal. It's actually stewardship, you guys. Like, many people confuse becoming more with betraying, with betrayal. All right. So many people do confuse becoming more with betraying those who knew them before. But growth is not betrayal. All right. It's alignment with your divine evolution. Why did I put this on here? Because I feel like we can come from communities that, if you grow, if you want something better, if you want a better relationship, that in something, um it's as if people like, oh, you think you better than us, oh, you think um you selling out, it's just so many like narratives about expansion. Listen, embracing growth isn't betrayal to the hood, to the street you grew up on, to the last name that you hold, right? It's stewardship, it's responsibility. All right. Getting into a relationship and being loyal to your mate or to your partner, right? That's growth. That's maturity, right? That's not selling out. All right. But again, when you start to do it, because we have those beliefs, right? Because we have those messages that we've lived with for so long, right? We have to go through all of that. And again, that's what triggers the nervous system. And we may not even know that we're carrying these beliefs, but especially if you grew up in inner cities where there was this very much loyalty to, you know, loyalty to the community, loyalty to the culture, loyalty to the hustle and bustle, loyalty to the grind, loyalty to the poverty, right? Loyalty to the lack, right? And then when you are ready to live in ease and abundance and you're ready to just live in alignment and have this level of ease, I think that there's this thing that you're selling out. You know what I mean? And you're really not selling out, you guys. You're actually getting into alignment, into flow. Okay. All right. And that can trigger, right? That's not failure. That's not a betrayal. That's actually stewardship. And we need to change that language. Okay. As a culture, right? As a race, as a gender, right? And I think in genders we have it differently. Males get a different type of messages and what that looks like, and then females get different type of messages of what that looks like. And so we really need to start to change that language. If that makes sense, put a heart in the chat. And if that's a life lesson that you want me to explore more, put more in the chat for me. All right. Listen, fear is not the enemy of growth, you guys. It's the signal that growth is happening. All right. If you keep shrinking when life expands, okay, you will train your nervous system to confuse safety with smallness. Let me say that again. If you keep shrinking when life expands, you'll train your nervous system to confuse safety with smallness. Listen, you're not afraid of being seen. You're afraid of being seen. You're afraid that being seen won't feel safe. All right. But healing says, I deserve to be seen. All right. And feel safe. And when I'm saying being seen, I ain't even talking about in front of a million people on the stage, right? I'm talking about even being seen by your mate, all right, by the person who loves you, by your husband, by your sibling, by a friend, all right, who could bear your secrets, okay? All right. So this scene that I'm talking about is, can I trust this person with just the vulnerability, being vulnerable? All right. So you're not afraid of being vulnerable. Okay. Let me say it like that. So you're not afraid of being vulnerable, right? You're afraid that being vulnerable won't feel safe because sometimes feeling vulnerable doesn't feel what safe, right? But I deserve to what? To be vulnerable and what? And feel safe. All right. Listen, one woman said to me, when I finally stopped waiting to be less scared and just started showing up, the fear never left, but I stopped letting it lead. All right. All right. Listen, neuroscience shows that unfamiliar success activates the same brain, all right, the same brain centers as threat. Let me say that again because I read it kind of different. Okay, neuroscience shows that unfamiliar success activates the same brain centers as threats, but constant action rewires your response. So, neuroscience shows that unfamiliar success, all right, activates the same center as threat. So, what that means is that when your brain is perceiving threat, and unfamiliar success, your brain sees them the same. All right. So, unfamiliar success, meaning this is a success that's not familiar to me, and threat, the brain sees them the same. But consistent action rewires this response. So, when I keep experiencing this unfamiliar success, what I'm teaching my brain what? To rewire that response, that it's okay, that I'm going to what? That this is not a threat, that I'm going to have success that's not familiar to me, that it's okay to get a check in the mail and I don't have to know where this money came from, or to get a solicitor that is looking for my services because they see me, and I don't have to be like, okay, well, who is this random person just calling looking for me? That a person can, I don't know, whatever that is, right? I can be open, right, to new opportunities without my brain going, red flag. All right. Listen, you're not wrong for feeling the resistance, but you don't have to stay there. All right. You're not wrong for feeling the resistance, but you really don't have to stay there. Okay. All right. If that makes sense, put a 5 in the chat for me as we move to our framework. All right. So we know that the T in stop it, right, stands for triggers. All right. And so today we highlight how emotional flashbacks like visibility, voice, and vulnerability often makes us what? Retreat. All right. But these are the very invitations to expand. All right. Because we know that we're really looking at triggers as what? An invitation. All right. Not a reason to hide, not a reason to retreat, but an invitation to what? To get present, to respond differently, to allow this moment to actually hold a different meaning than the prior moment that created this trigger. All right. All right. So these are invitations to expand. So let's learn how to pause. Let's name the trigger and let's move what forward. So here are 10 essential insights that you can think about that really links embrace, which is what we're talking about this week. Rising is what we're talking about this month, and how to elevate your mindset, which is the whole theme. Okay. Listen, a trigger is a teacher, not a threat. All right. Triggers reveal where healing needs space. All right. Not where you're broken. So when you feel resistance, ask, what this What is this really trying to show me? All right. Listen, triggers reveal where healing still needs space. So triggers are what? Teachers. They're invitations. They're not threats. Okay. Number two, and again, I'm talking about in mental health. All right. When we're talking about mental health, all right. We're talking about mental health because mental health is so important. It's just like our physical health, spiritual health, yeah, financial health. We have all of these health, and one of those health is mental health. All right. And we are all triggered. We are all triggered. All right. And mental illness. All right. So my brother has a mental illness. All right. He has schizophrenia. His trigger, we may have to dig a little deeper for him, okay? Because, when he's triggered, right, his behaviors may get a little more severe, right? He has schizophrenia. So I'm listening for something very different from him. Like, did he take his medicine? He gets to talk in a different. So when I'm talking about mental illness triggers, that's a very different than a mental health trigger. All right. So when we're talking about mental health triggers, it's an invitation. Okay. It's a teacher, not a threat. All right. That makes sense. Put a one in chat. Number two, fear of expansion is a survival loop. Okay, listen, your nervous system isn't trying to sabotage you. Again, it's trying to protect you based on your old story. This is why we need to update our stories. All right, new levels of visibility, leadership, and love often awakens what old alarms. Again, ring the alarm. I've been through this too long, and if I see another picture in your arm. Yes, honey. Beyonce. Oh, anyway. Come back, Sheila. Listen, fear of expansion is a survival loop. Listen, your nervous system is not trying to sabotage you. I know that we have this story, and I have to catch myself a lot too, that we just feel like this body is just against us, honey, right? That is, we're just sabotagers, and it just like life is against us, but it's not. Okay, listen, new levels of visibility, leadership, and love often awaken just old alarms in us. Okay. All right, number three, growth can feel like loss before it feels like freedom. I'm gonna say that for the people all the way in the back, and then I'm gonna say that for me. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna bring that full circle. Growth can feel like loss before it feels like freedom. Listen, you might grieve your comfort zone, your familiar roles, and your old self. But listen, that grief is not a sign to what? To go back. All right. It's proof that you're stepping forward. And I'm gonna do a life lesson on grief. Okay. Um, because I do think that a lot of us are experiencing grief in our growth. And because no one is talking about the grief in our growth, we feel like we're not growing and we're repeating old language, and it has nothing to do with our old self. It is just we're grieving the old person as we're becoming this new person, and that is requiring us to be more present. It's requiring that you be more present, more more community focused, right? More alert, right? And if you don't have those things in place, then it's going to affect the process. Okay, it's going to affect your process. But listen, that grief is not a sign to go back. It's proof that you're stepping forward. All right, listen, number four, triggers are often linked to identities, not circumstances. Your triggers are often linked to identity, not circumstances. Listen, when trigger what trigger what triggers you isn't always about what happened, you guys. It's about who you believe. It's about who you believe you are in that moment. Am I worthy? Am I safe? Am I allowed? So listen, triggers are often linked to identity, not circumstances. So when you're triggered, it's not about what happens. It's more about who you believe you are in that moment. Like, am I worthy to speak my mind? Am I worthy to stand up for myself? Am I safe enough to actually say something back? Right? Right? Am I safe enough to actually defend myself? All right. So it's more of an identity issue than it is a circumstance. Because remember, if I'm being triggered back to when I was unsafe, when I was a kid, right? When I was defenseless, and that was the identity that I carried back then that trigger is putting me back into an identity that I no longer am today. Okay. So triggers are often linked to an identity and not the circumstance. All right. And that's why identity is so important, that you know who you are today so you can override the trigger. So even when the trigger come in and like, you know, the reflex comes up, you can be like, oh yeah, but I ain't that little kid anymore, right? I'm safe. I can say how I feel. I could feel this emotion. I am allowed, right? And I am worthy. All right. All right. That makes sense. Put a 4 in the chat for me. Number 5, your capacity expands in response to what you embrace. All right. I talk about capacity a lot. So when you stop resisting growth, listen, your nervous system adapts. So emotional safety doesn't mean staying small. It means becoming grounded in who you are now. Okay. Because your capacity expands in response to what you embrace, you guys. All right. All right. So when you stop resisting growth, okay, and what I'm saying, when you stop resisting growth, knowing that growth is inevitable, all right, it's a part of who we are. So when we stop trying to resist it and make it a part of who we are, making sure that we're growing every day, we're learning, okay, even our kids, even if that's a part of our growth, like learning who my son is today, because I know that my son has grown to be someone very different today than he was last week, right? Because he has acquired new information. And so I want to know who you are today. All right. He's not the little boy he was when he was 6. He's 16 now, right? So I'm not resisting that growth in my son. I don't have a little boy anymore. I have a teenager, right? Right. So when I stop resisting that growth, my nervous system will adapt. And so now as a parent, I'm able to to parent a I'm able to parent a teenager and treat him like a teenager and not like he's a little boy. And then I'm able to parent my adult children like adults. And my nervous system adapts to that because I'm not resistant to the growth of my adult children. All right. They're adults now. All right. And then I can feel all of the feelings that come with that. All right. If that makes sense, put a 5 in the chat. Okay. Number 6, avoiding triggers really reinforce limiting beliefs. Okay. Avoiding triggers really reinforces limiting beliefs. Every time you shrink, every time you shrink, every time you shrink back from the edge of transformation, you unintentionally affirm that I'm not ready or I can't handle this. All right. Courage is built by moving with the fear, not without it. All right. So avoiding triggers just reinforces the limiting belief, because every time you shrink back from the edge of transformation, listen, you're unintentionally affirming that you're not ready. All right. And you want your body to know that you're ready. And that's why you have to move with the fear, and you're unintentionally affirming that you can't handle it, when absolutely you want your body to know that you can handle anything. And how do you know that? Because biblically, because you're divine, right? And you can handle anything, right? And so the more you move with the fear, the more you're training your nervous system that you can handle anything that life puts in front of you. All right. All right. Number 7, triggers lose power when you give them language. So saying I feel scared because I've never seen this. I feel scared because I've never seen. Okay. I feel scared because I've never been seen like this before. Transforms the trigger from chaos to clarity. So naming it makes it manageable. So again, we can name it, right? Because when we name it, we reduce it, right? We take the power away. All right. Number 8, you are allowed to expand without explaining. We talked about this on yesterday. You can expand without expanding. All right. So you don't have to justify your healing to people who only knew you're hurting. All right. Embrace isn't just action is permission. All right. So you don't have to justify your healing to people who only knew you're hurting. All right. You don't have to justify it. All right. And some people only want to see you hurting. Some people only want to know the hurt version of you because they benefited from that. And that's, oh, how do I want to say this? My spirit. How do I want to say it? Okay. So some people only want to know the hurt version of you because that is the version of you that they're most comfortable with. All right. All right. And the healed version of you is the version of you that they are least comfortable with. All right. And they don't like to experience uncomfortableness inside of them. And so that makes it difficult, right? When your healed self shows up, then there's a conflict. All right. Because the healed version of you is very uncomfortable for them, and then you experience that uncomfortableness within your dynamic. All right. All right. All right. If that makes sense, put a heart in the chat for me. All right. So every trigger is an invitation to embody your next level. Instead of spiraling into old behaviors, really ask yourself, how would the next level of me respond right now? I told you I have my Lexi effect. My middle name is our Lexi. So I always ask myself, what would our Lexi do? Right? We had that what would Jesus do? Yeah, so every trigger is an invitation to really embody the next level. So for me, our Lexi is like my ultimate, ego divine being, right? So, I'm asking like, what would Lexi do? Okay. Sheila got her shenanigans. All right. And I give myself permission to have my shenanigans. But sometimes I would be like, what would Lexi do? Right. And I'll step into her, and make the wise decision. Sheila sometimes can do some wounded things, some things out of my woundedness, and I have compassion for myself for that. But I say that our Lexi is my wise woman, right? And so what would Lexi do? All right. And so every trigger is an invitation to embody your next level. So sometimes to bypass our wounds, right, we can kind of sometimes make this alter ego, and we can ask, how would my next level or my next version of me respond to that right now? And we can actually name that, right? We can name it. And that's my middle name, our Lexi. You can name it what you want to name yours, right? And it could be you. All right. Number 10, the last but not least, all right, embrace requires trust in your becoming. All right. So embrace really requires trust in your becoming. Listen, you may not feel ready. All right. You may not feel ready, but you are resourced. All right. You may not feel ready, but you are resourced. Trust the same spirit that started your healing. Guess what? To finish it. All right. To finish it. To finish it with who? With you. All right. Trust the same energy that promoted and started your healing. Guess what? To be there through the journey and to finish it with you. All right. All right. If that makes sense, put a heart in the chat as we move to our biblical wisdom. All right. So we know that we're using the same verses. All right. So so Romans 12:2, do not conform to the patterns of the world. Simply don't conform to the past version of yourself that plays small to stay safe. All right. All right. Listen, do not conform to the patterns of the world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. This scripture helps reframe the resistance to expansion. The pattern of the world can be seen as playing small to be accepted, staying quiet to feel safe, and internalizing shame as humility. The God in you, the divinity is not calling you to keep shrinking into what used to be safe. This transformation isn't about performance. Listen, it's about permission. All right. You renew your mind every time you choose alignment over approval. All right. Every time you pause and challenge the old belief that says you're too much and not ready. All right. Listen, the world is not just external. Okay. It's not just external. It's the internal world of fear, of protection, of programming. Renewing your mind means choosing expansion, even when it feels foreign. All right. It's spiritual alignment, not self-help hype. Okay. And sometimes we can be addicted to consuming. All right, to this consumption. All right. So we're in self-help hype. We're listening to podcasts, we're consuming content, we're reading self-help books. We're listening to, a lot of the YouTube's pastors and all of that, but we're not embodying. All right. We're not embodying. And so because we're not embodying, we're not in alignment. All right. Because we haven't embodied it. All right. So renewing your mind really means choosing expansion, even when it feels foreign. Okay. Even when it feels foreign. All right. In our principal verse, which is Philippians 1:6, right? He who began a good work in you. All right, listen, you're not complete. Basically, you're not complete, but you are being carried by grace. All right. So trust the process. All right. Trust the process. He who began a good work, he who began a good work in you will carry it out to what? To completion. All right. So this verse offers what? Spiritual safety in the middle of internal stretching, right? So expansion often feels terrifying, right? It feels terrifying, not because it's wrong, but because it's unfamiliar. All right. Again, I can remember praying to God, God, expand my territory financially, bring in more clients, give me the strength and the courage to get online. I want to have YouTube followers. I want to grow this Elevate in Life group, right? Just expand my territory. And I can remember like seeing the group grow and seeing the numbers grow on YouTube, and seeing more of the engagement happening. And I can remember feeling the angst come with that too, right? Because now there's more exposure, right? And it's like, whoo, what they gonna say? Are they gonna agree with my perspective? Because I do know that my perspective is different than a lot of therapists. All right. I know that I have a unique view. I know that my view is not like everyone else's. And guess what? I told you guys, I know I ain't always showed up 100%. All right. So with that expansion came this, okay, is this really what you want? All right. So this verse offers spiritual safety in the middle of internal stretching. Expansion expansion often feels terrifying, not because it's wrong, but because it's unfamiliar, right? So Philippians 1:6 reminds you that you're not doing it alone. Okay. God doesn't just give you a dream or a desire. All right. He doesn't just give you a dream or a desire. He started a process in you. All right. He started a process in you. And that process isn't yours to force. All right. But it is yours to trust. All right. It's not yours to force, but it is yours to trust. And when your voice trembles, all right, when your platform grows, all right, and when you're stepping out, this verse really reminds you that you're becoming. And that becoming is backed by what? By God's grace, by the heavens above, by the internal divinity in you. All right. And it's safe. It's safe to expand. All right. Listen, you're not failing, you're forming. You don't have to rush the process. Just remain present. All right. As much as possible through it. All right. All right. If that makes sense, put a heart in the chat for me. All right. Just remain present through it as much as possible. All right. Listen, together these verses really ground today's lesson with this deep truth, right? They affirm that shrinking was a survival tool, but growth is what? A divine calling. All right. That your transformation is not your burden. It's God's promise unfolding through you. All right. And that expansion will feel scary, but you can meet it with faith, not fear. All right. And if you've been feeling resistance, you're not broken, you're being rebuilt. Okay. If you've been feeling resistance, you're not broken, you're being rebuilt. All right. You're not behind, you're being called forward. All right. I do have to go and say, like, I do talk about this divine or this divinity because I do think it's important to our growth. Okay. I believe that we have to believe that there is something bigger than us to even make sense of life. Okay. So much is happening in the world, so much is happening with our life. And as we're growing and changing and evolving, right, we need to understand that one, although we're great and wonderfully and beautifully made, that 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 there is the duality of authority in my life, but then also like the balance that it ain't always about me, right? That I am still a speck in something that's greater, right? That life is not just about me, but that life is about me, right? And how do I balance those two things? That I'm worthy and valuable because life is about me, but then realizing that, you know what? Life ain't always about me, right? Right. And 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 I think that, in talking about divinity and talking about this, connecting our being these energetic beings, and and bringing in scripture, and talking about these promises and practices, promises and principles. One, they helped me. Okay, like I'm not a person that go to church every Sunday, right? But to know that there were principles that divinely, that there were promises that the creator said, hey, I promise this to you, right, as my child, right? And then there were principles that, like, if you live this way, then you will get this, right? To me, it was in those universal laws like gravity, right? Then that made life a little bit more simpler. That made life a little bit more simpler for me. And hopefully, the biblical wisdom tied in with the life lesson helps life to be a little bit more simpler for you. So let's put this into practice. Okay, let's put this into practice. Um so today what I want you to do is name one area in your life you've been pulling back. Okay, so take 5 minutes, take five brave minutes, brave 5 minute brave action today. I want you to send an email, record a video, or say something. So I want you to name one area that you've been pulling back from. All right, all right. And you can send an email, you can record that in a video, or just say something, right? If you need and that is the action. All right, if you need a journal prompt, it's just, if I didn't need permission to grow, what would I allow myself to do? All right, if I didn't need permission to grow, what would I allow myself to do right now? All right. All right, affirmation for today. Listen, my growth is sacred. I do not need to shrink to feel safe. My growth is sacred, and I do not need to shrink to feel safe. Let me put this up here. I'm so sorry. My growth is sacred, and I do not need to shrink to feel safe. Okay. And then our intention for today. Today, I choose bravery over familiarity. Remember, bravery. I choose bravery over familiarity. I'm just gonna be brave today. Do something different. Okay. All right. And then if you need that bonus challenge, listen, catch yourself when you say, I'm not ready, and replace it with, I'm expanding and I can handle this. Because you got it. All right. Because you got this. All right. So catch yourself when you say, hey, I'm not ready, and replace it with, I'm expanding and I can handle this. All right. All right. Any questions for me today as I end the show? Any questions? All right. There's a call, challenge, and charge that I do every day. Okay. As you get your questions in, here's the call. The call is, what truth are you walking away with today? Okay. What truth are you walking away with? The challenge is, what brave, imperfect action can you take today? And then the challenge is, what brave, imperfect action can you take today? And then the charge, listen, you're not shrinking, you're stretching. So go shape your life. Okay. Go shape your life. Listen, if this session resonated with you on today, you're walking away with insight, okay? Um, and it spoke to your expansion journey, and it spoke to your expansion journey, you already know what to do. Drop a fire in the chat and let's celebrate our growth together. Okay, let's celebrate our growth together. I want you to remember that if you can shape it in your mind, guess what? You can have it in your life. Any questions? Good morning. Good morning, Mama Sharon. Good morning, Mama Sharon. All right. She said faith over fear. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Listen, I love you. I love you. I love you. We'll come back tomorrow as we talk about the obstacles. All right. As we talk about obstacles, I love you. I love you. I love you. And I'll see you tomorrow for that life lesson. Till later.